what I would love to have you do is pair share, and you should know who your partner is. And I'm gonna give you like a minute and a half. And if you don't know the person, introduce yourself, and go ahead and just talk about, you don't have to read on the paper, but just talk about what you said in this. So it's gonna get really loud here for like a minute and a half. I'm timing you. Yeah, sorry, so Leslie's gonna share with you. So this row, you're gonna turn around.
Do you want to just keep going?
Oh, you can pause. Yes. Oh no, keep going. Just keep going.
Not Regina's book. The very first part I wrote, I was 5 years old. And I have all kinds of things. There's a series of books called this, and they're just super
Okay, guys. We need to kind of wrap up the conversation. Your time is up.
That was her first voting, but it would be based on.
Maybe you'll wind up sitting next to your partner at lunch, or you can see them and continue the conversation there. I'm sorry we don't have more time for that. But I'm curious, is there anyone in here who would be willing to just real quickly tell us what that topic is that's burning in your heart? And also maybe what you wanted to get out of the session. Okay, Anna.
I want to write about how horses help me get through traumatic times, grief, chronic illness, and loss. What I want to learn is how strategies to hone a topic's focus into a picture of the proposal.
Very important. Okay, thank you for sharing that. And you're also going to get a sticker. Is there anyone else who would be willing to share?
You just want a sticker.
It's okay. It's okay. Yes.
But I think I might represent how other people feel too, and that, like, the number one is like, there's a lot of topics, a lot of different avenues I wanna go down. But my biggest thing is feeling like, I don't know where to start. Who am I to write a book? That imposter syndrome feeling.
We're going to talk about that. Oh, anything else? Okay. And anyone else? Don't be shy.
Well, that's
Very
super
nice. My students are always like, you're so nice. I'm like, no, I'm not. Because you don't want to have a reputation as the nice teacher, because, you know, you gotta, you're really strict. All right, well, hopefully, I know a lot of you didn't share, but I'm hoping for that number 2, that you'll be able to walk away from this feeling like you had that burning question answered. And if not, I'm gonna be around here this whole weekend, so please flag me down and we can have a little conversation. I wanted to give you the good news, and that is that you are already very well equipped to write a book, to write long-form nonfiction, because you're a horse person. We're resilient.
Yes.
What's the first thing that you learn when you fall off?
Get back up.
Get back on, unless you have a concussion. And it's evident that you're a learner too, otherwise you wouldn't be here. So I think those are some of the key traits that are required to be able to get through this process. You know, I think about it a lot. It's just like horse training. It takes a very long time to train a good horse, you know, the proper way. And my trainer always likes to say that the slow way is the fast way. So this is how we have to kind of go into writing. I'm sure that all of you here have written short form, whether articles, blog posts, what have you, but it is kind of a little bit of a different beast. I like to think in metaphors. So the Rome wasn't built in a day. I always would tell myself that. And in the middle of the pandemic, when I was still teaching and I was doing the online teaching, I had this magnet on my refrigerator, and it said the words of Winston Churchill: keep going. So those little mantras are really helpful. Also, I think of it like getting physically fit. I like to do the spin bike. I'm not like the best at it, but I think even if I only have 15 minutes today, then you know tomorrow I can go a little bit longer. It's a long process, and so just little fits and spurts here and there really do add up. So if you're really stressed and you have a lot going on with your work or family situations, horse situations, we know they take up a lot of time. Don't lose heart, because you can totally do this. So the story that I had to get out into the world is about someone very special to me. I never met her, but our paths crossed in many ways. Probably many of you are familiar with Marguerite Henry, the author of Misty of Chincoteague. So I loved that book when I was a kid. I was one of those bookworm kids that would go to the library and get the stacks like this of all the horse books, and kind of secretly hope as I'm going out to the library to get them checked out that they're not gonna say, you have a limit, or you know, put some of those back. So our family didn't have money for horses, which was very sad for me. And I wasn't allowed to have a pet in the house, so that was also very sad. But when I was around 10, a family friend opened up the world of horses to me, and she had a 25-year-old bald-faced chestnut field hunter named Jim Dandy. And she said, just come on over to my house. She worked full-time. She's like, he needs to be ridden, just come on out. So I went, and there were other girls around my age that had horses there. I was the one without a horse. They owned their horse. I mean, this is like the setup for a typical like middle grade thing. But anyway, this was all in Wayne, Illinois, which is about an hour west of Chicago. And this is the same town where Marguerite Henry wrote Justin Morgan Had a Horse, Album of Horses, Misty of Chincoteague, Stormy, etc. So I always knew that she was in that area. But by that time she was, you know, in her later years living in Southern California, and I had no connection to anything in Southern California at the time. So when I was in high school, my mom's friend, they were talking, I don't know how they got on the topic, probably, oh, my daughter's crazy about horses. She's like, oh, I used to ride Misty the pony when I was a girl. So she brought in this photo of her on Misty, and I was kind of freaking out. My mom had a copy made. And so then over time, you know, I became a history teacher. So I'm kind of a history nerd, sort of forgot about this background stuff. You know, you move on as an adult. That friend that gave us the picture gave me Marguerite Henry's address, and I never wrote her a letter because I'm kind of perfectionistic. And I was like, it was like so awesome. I didn't know what to do with it, but I had that. Well, she died, and I never wrote this letter. So all this to say, over the years, and especially, you don't need my whole history, but I moved back to the Midwest, and the horse world is small, and so I kept kind of running into people who had a connection from years before. And then this sense of urgency as a historian, you know, that these people that have these oral histories are only gonna be around so much longer. Like, I gotta get on this now if it's gonna happen. So I'm gonna now give you about 10 little ideas to think about. It's not really 10 steps, they're not necessarily in a certain order, but these were just the ideas that I had. So the first thing I think you need to do when you're thinking about this subject that you want to write about is figure out, does it have enough meat to be long form? So if it doesn't, doesn't matter. You could write an article for a magazine or a series of blog posts. So like, I feel like you have nothing to lose if you start kind of the exploration. So if there's something similar out there, don't let that, stop you, because it's proof of concept. If there's nothing else out there like this, then you're probably on to something. And like, Anna, yours is a perfect example. Like, I'm not aware of anything quite like that in the realm of books that have been published. So the other thing, so for my Marguerite Henry book, in 2018, if you were at the Hunt Valley, Maryland thing, I don't know if you remember the documentary about the Chincoteague ponies, and everyone was crying. Everyone in the room was crying. So I thought, oh, okay, so there's people that this story might resonate with. Also, I was able to score an autographed Misty of Chincoteague, and it was written out to Susan. It was my name. So I was so excited when I got it off of eBay or wherever it was. And so I posted it in some like middle-aged women's Facebook group, and that post went viral. And then all these people were leaving comments like this about, I went to Chincoteague on my honeymoon because of that book and all this other stuff. So I thought, well, yes, this story does need to be in the world. So I did a lot of research. This is just a cool photo. So I'm a history nerd and kind of a English language arts nerd, and the Newbery stories, they're the highest prize for children's literature. So this is her actual Newbery medal that she won for King of the Wind that I was able to touch when I did my research at the University of Minnesota. Okay, so please get over imposter syndrome. Were any of you at Donna Brothers' speech last year? She was so motivational, and what I really liked about her was I just felt like she was such a trailblazer, and how she was saying like there was no place that was recording jockeys as like athletes with their statistics, and so, well, I'm just gonna do it and make a website. And then people don't really understand the lingo of horse racing, and I'm one of those people, even though I have an off-track thought, like I'm not a total diehard race person, so she wanted to write a book to help people better understand horse racing and that. So I took a lot away from that, and I messaged her, which was kind of like with the whole Margaret Henry thing, when I had the letter and I didn't write it, just because I didn't really know what to say, and she's up here and I feel like I'm down here. So it was the same thing with Donna Brothers. I thought, I'm gonna send her a message and just tell her how much I appreciated her motivational talk, and then I shared a little with her about what I was doing. And so she replied with this, and she said, as a writer, because I was telling her that I didn't feel like, I'm not a true historian. I don't have a master's in history. But yes, I taught history for 20 years. So I know the things, I just don't have the degree with my name. So as a writer, you already know that words have power. Remember, the ones you tell yourself have equal weight. And so she said, so tell yourself, now I'm a historian. So I think she did that with her different, now I'm what is she, an anchor? I don't even really know what her position, but like the coolest job of riding a horse with a microphone and all of that. The other thing you need to do, I would say, is read a ton of similar-ish books to the type that you would like to bring into the world. So for me, I love all of Elizabeth Lett's books, and I really respect her as a historian and a storyteller. So like Snowman, I can remember where I was when I finished that book, and I was crying because I didn't want it to be over. Julie and Julia, what I liked about that, if you remember, it's about the cookbook, Julia Child's cookbook, and then Julie, the woman in a dead-end job in New York. I liked the interplay of the two stories of the women. So I thought, I wasn't sure when I started Marguerite, Misty, and Me, if it was gonna be straight up biography or if it'd be more fun to have like these parallel stories going in there. So I just thought I have to keep writing and see what happens. And so it's going to be in this biblio-memoir genre, which I learned a new word while on this journey. So there are several books that are kind of like a person with another like literary person. So, and I'm not saying I'm a literary heroine like Margaret Henry, but it's my admiration for her. And we're both from the Midwest, We both rode horses in Pratt's Wayne Forest Preserve and rode at the Dunham Woods Club, like, so there's that similarity. So also, I'm gonna pause for a second about the mentor text. That's kind of a fancy educational term, but like really helpful just for seeing how things are structured in a book. So I was referring a lot to Elizabeth Lett's books, even like, okay, how is she doing the acknowledgments? How is she doing the note section? So try to figure out which books yours are going to be like. This is the picture I was telling you about earlier. So when I decided to just start researching and see where it goes, I wrote a blog post in 2015 using the picture. And then in 2019, it occurred to me, like, Mary Ellen's still alive. My mom, they kind of lost touch, but my mom found her again. And then we went to visit her, and she was in an assisted living home. And I took the picture, and she couldn't really tell me. She remembered the outfit, that her grandmother had sewn the outfit for her, but she couldn't really tell me anything about the pony. But then a gentleman named Sky, out of the blue, who lives in Connecticut but grew up in Wayne, sent me an email because of the blog post. And then he started telling me names of people that I should reach out to. From there, I was on Ancestry.com and found a long, very, very distant relative of Sidney Henry, Marguerite's husband. So you just kind of see where things go. Now, I'm obviously making the assumption now that you're doing something along the lines like I am. So if you're doing more memoir but you don't need any research, then just kind of disregard this and you can listen and look at the cute picture. But the other thing that's cool about the horse world being small, so when this gentleman Sky emailed me and he gave me all these names, I'm like, well, I don't really know how to find these people because they're not on social media because they're in their 80s. I mean, my mom's in her 80s and she's on social media, maybe a little too much. But so when I was at my new barn, after my horse and I had moved from California back to Illinois, just through a parking lot conversation, literally there was a woman that was like, oh, you want to know this person? Yeah, I can send you the email. So don't be shy about what you're trying to do. And then of course, research, I had to go to Chincoteague, and then I got swept into the whole kind of cult, cult with air quotes. Another thing I would definitely say is, especially in the genre that I did, is to befriend librarians, because you don't know what you don't know. And there's Marguerite herself got the idea for Brighty from a librarian. Actually, the same librarian that introduced Mary Ellen, the cute little girl in the picture, to Marguerite Henry. It's all like full circle. A librarian gave her the idea for this Gundenzia story that she did. So, and not just librarians, but local historians love to share what they know. I've been able to really make some great connections. Archivists, professors, again, maybe this won't, it depends on what type of book you're writing, if all of these types of people, but I would say definitely you can't really do it alone, you know, and then we're gonna talk to you about a team of people that you can work with. So this Steve, who was an archivist, brought out this book on the right, is like this big, and I was laughing. And in there, he opened the pages and he showed me the exact address where Marguerite Henry grew up as a little girl. So like, I never could have figured that out by myself, but I knew kind of that this information has to be out there somewhere. And then this was, I just got my hair cut. This is like a month ago, and the town I was getting my hair cut in is Dundee, Illinois. And I read in one source that Sidney Henry owned a 5 and dime store in Dundee, Illinois, but only in one source. I mean, I've read just about every article that there is at this point about Marguerite Henry. And so I thought, I wonder if they have a little history society or something. So went on my phone, I'm in the car, and how far away? Oh my gosh, it's only open from like 2 until 4, and it was 2:15 in the afternoon, and it was 1.5 miles from where I was. So I went over there and I walked in, I'm like, hi, I'm researching to see if the Henrys owned a building in Dundee. And the person said, oh, go up to our archives. And so I walked to the second floor, and there were just a few library shelves, and I said the name to the woman, and she said, "Oh, I think they bought the Opera House." Opera House? I didn't even know there was like this little town, and this is not Chicago. It's like a small town outside of Chicago. So she went around and found all this stuff that never would have been searchable through digital means. And so it was just one of those fun situations. I didn't put that information in the book, but it's just as far as rounding out what you know about your topic, just follow those little rabbit trails. For technique, just start writing in chunks. And again, the worst case scenario is maybe you won't have enough for a book, but maybe you will. One of Marguerite's publishing world mentors told her, "Let your first draft run." So I actually typed that into the top of my Google Doc along with the name. So I thought, I'm just like, I don't even know what I'm doing. I'm just typing in stuff. I'm just typing in facts. And then, you just have to keep going with it. The other thing I do, and I've been told I shouldn't use Google Docs, but that's